Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Moises Esparza. I'm the exhibitions manager for the San Diego Latino Film Festival. Thank you for joining us during our virtual 27th edition. We're used to seeing movies together in a movie theater, but this year we're doing things a little bit differently, obviously adjusting to the times. We're really happy to be able to bring you our programming to the safety of your home. And something that's really amazing about our film festival is that I get the pleasure of talking with filmmakers from all over the world, really. And for today's post-screening discussion of Todos Cambiamos, we have director Arturo Montenegro here joining us. Welcome, Arturo. How are you?
Fine. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to share through this new system that is a virtual world that we are all involved now.
Yeah, you know, it makes me really think about like the purpose of the internet, of connecting individuals, and sometimes we kind of take it for granted until we're presented with the task of creating an entire film festival online and then host these discussions. So I'm really glad to be connecting with you today. Your film is, I think, from my perspective at least, a really revolutionary portrayal of a family adjusting to what had happened, to what occurs when the father figure decides to transition to embrace her true self, and we see that carried out throughout your film. It ends with a really fascinating, I guess, subscript over the title. It says, inspired by the new families.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this.
It's because to us, it was like the very first film in our country that talks about transsexuality wide open. So we wanted to manage the idea of the different kind of families because we don't have any law that protect equally married persons in our constitution right now. So we want to talk about that possibility because I think the Panamanian laws are in depth with the citizens.
And so this film was really, truly a bit revolutionary in Panama. Has it been released, and how has it been received?
Actually, it's like something like mixed feelings because in one hand, it was a fantastic thing to do because we are in this middle of this fight right now. But in the other hand, we receive a lot of opposition. You know, even a letter to the president of the country asking him to forbid the film in cinemas. So we need to fight because that was something that was beyond imagination. I mean, to to fight because you want to put the content on cinema. So it was half and half, and still, I mean, the society is very polarized. I mean, it's a lot of people have opposition for the LGBTQ groups, and if you go directly, for example, to a Twitter network or Facebook, there is a lot of fight among these two groups, the ones that want to support equal rights for the LGBT community, and the ones that are against uh, all all freedom.
You know, and the film title is so, I guess, perfect for the movie and its characters, Todos Cambiamos, and it's also perhaps a call out to even the spectator to remind us that through life experiences, we all have the potential to change, which I think is a really, really powerful message. Um, from its conception, did you have in mind Aranza de Juan for the role of Federico and Lizzie?
Yeah, I remember I was in Spain in 2008, 18, no, 17, at the end of that year, and I met her through a presentation of another movie that I direct, and she came to me and said, "Oh, I have this uh, play tonight, so you can come to the theater and maybe you can see it." And I remember I went there, and I found her very like different. I mean, a very strong woman with a strong physiognomy. Uh, and when we decide to choose and develop the this movie, Everybody Changes, Todos Cambiamos, uh, we wanted to have like a trans character. So I called and talked to Antonia San Juan in Spain. I don't know if you remember her from Todo Sobre Mi Madre, from Pedro Almodóvar, Lagrado, and she told me, okay, I don't, I love the your idea. I mean, of the movie, but I can not have that part because it makes me suffer so much in my personal life. So call me if you have something else in the future, but this movie is too harsh for me right now because she was experiencing, I mean, some trouble with her personal life. So after that, we had the two options. Okay, what we can do? Maybe we can hire an actor and do the transformation. But after a lot of thinking, we decide to give the part to a female actress because for a trans woman, that's what they want. They want to be perceived as as what they are, woman. So at the end, the decision was to do it with a wonderful actress as Arancha is, because she has this duality that works a lot to our film.
Well, you begin with the duality within the movie. We meet Lizzie as Federico, and
Federico, yeah.
we follow her on, I think, like, was it a manicure appointment? It's one of the
Yeah,
first scenes, and
the
then
like,
a date uh, as Lizzie with her wife. So you learn a lot about the characters in the first 5 minutes of the film. Very curious about that initial setup of the film because as a viewer, I don't know if the word is surprising, but you're thinking, wow, this is a very interesting dynamic that we're seeing here on screen between these two individuals. What is their relationship to one another? And then when you realize what it is, you think, wow, very progressive, very exciting. But then later on, as the story continues, the film goes back to um, perhaps a more conservative view from the family, and it
yeah.
ends somewhere unified. But let us know, tell us a little bit about the inception of these first 5 minutes, which I think are really important to the whole movie.
Okay, for me, it was very important to understand that everything inside the mind of a trans person is a process, and she said it to the boy, to her kid. At the end of the movie, they say, "Hey, it's a process," because for Carol, for example, the questioning of love, the concept of love, was important to me to make it inside the movie. How far we are capable of love one each other. How deep is love? We always talk about unconditional love, but the reality is that we set conditions, and for Carol it starts like very like a kind of game where she play with Federico, and when he needs to be Lizzie, but it's like, the condition is that they are setting this like a game, but when Federico needs to undergo a different kind of feeling, she's not ready. She's not ready at all, and that's what causes the big drama in their relationship. To see her husband make this journey she is not capable of. So for me, it was always a question of how deep if is your love, and if you are, capable of love that far.
Absolutely. And there's maybe two parallel journeys that develop in the film, Lizzie and Carol's, and they're maybe running parallel to one another throughout the film. They start united, separate, and Carol has her own experiences too, which I think are really interesting and worth discussing. I think, maybe begins this as after she refuses to accept Lizzie for who she is. She seems to go out to find maybe a substitute husband that doesn't really go that well. So she seems to have a different idea of what a family dynamic is. Talk a little bit more about Carol's journey, which I think is also very fascinating within the
She's very,
context of the film.
yeah, yeah, she's the counterpart. She's very essential in the whole story, and what you want is to have the sense of a family, because after Federico took the decision of go under the surgery, uh, she felt alone, and she's very familiar oriented, and she want to gain her family back in some way. So she tries, and it's beautiful because it's wonderful in life when the people try tries she tries to fix it. So she's open to see new possibilities, but she discovered after that that she's still in love with Lizzie, as a spirit, as a soul, not because the superficial thing of a body, but she loved her more than the body.
Right.
They can be even at the end of the movie, because she like rethink the process for herself and decide, hey, I love Lizzie, I love Federico, I love the person. This is a family, and we can still be together. It's going to be different. It's not going to be the same, but we are going to fight life together.
Yeah, great point. And it's almost like loving the self or someone else's self is more important than loving the corporal
Yeah.
body that you described, which I think is one of the more forward-thinking ideas found in your film, and it's definitely full of progressive family dynamics that must have taken a lot of care and a lot of research when it came to developing the family dynamic with the kids getting used to the idea, how they reacted. So maybe talk a little bit about the work that went into creating an authentic story revolving around a trans woman. Tell us how you made this experience authentic.
Yeah, there is a lot of research involved. I just remember talking to different people, groups, trans women, trans men, about their feelings, how they experience inside their own families, and I found it very sad, very sad. I mean, to live in a country where you need to hide almost your whole life because you are the way you are, and it was the starting point. I need to find more about how was this journey for Federico, because he's part of a generation in Latin American countries, of generation of men, of people that have been denied, I mean, any possibility of being who they really are, because of the accusing society, the authoritarian state. You need to, I mean, to understand the concept or the context of Latin American countries. Talking about sexuality, it's not even yet, and also, I mean, the complicity of the religion in our country is so strong still. So that was, I mean, the starting point, and then I fear researching in the different persons, and I wanted to tell the story this way, because I want to tell you something that happened to us when we projected the movie premiere in Costa Rica,
Okay.
and we invite a group of trans women to the premiere, and after the premiere, one of the trans women come to me and say me something very beautiful. She told me, Arturo, we also have the right to have our fairy tale. We can also have a family, a decent job, and build a life. And I found it luminous, because sometimes we forget that we're talking about a group that is very, very far from the rest of the groups. Uh, there is a lot of discrimination against them. They can't find decent jobs. So I want to portray Federico as a very successful person at the beginning, and and as Lizzie, she's I mean, continuing to be the wonderful professional in the company, but also a person that has something to offer to her family, because in most of the cases in Latin America, trans community is very far from that. But I just love when it happened to me in Costa Rica. That woman saying me, "I love the movie because of this. We we do have this life. Can have this life."
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that anecdote. We have a few comments coming in. One of them is related to what you just mentioned, and maybe if there's anything more to add, feel free to do so. So Ethan says, "Thank you, Arturo, for the opportunity to show your movie in San Diego."
Hello,
And
Ethan.
here's and here's a question regarding a little bit what you just discussed. You had this reaction from a trans individual, a trans woman, saying that they deserve to have fairy tales too. Has there been any other feedback you've gotten from other trans identifying individuals who see the movie?
Yeah, they felt very respected, uh, and also they talk about the opportunity of being the way they are. I mean, they felt uh, with a deep love because the message of the movie, and they felt under, understand. I mean,
Understood. Yeah.
yeah, understood in a way. So it has been a great process to me, because I learned so much from the trans community. At the beginning, I didn't know, uh, because uh, it was because from the outside you can have another kind of thought about it. But when I went deep, I discovered so many beautiful things from uh, our trans women, mostly.
Todos cambiamos. The title of the story.
Yeah, and it applies to me.
Yeah, I think it applies to everyone, which is, I think, why the film plays out so accessibly universal, despite the fact that it has very, very progressive ideologies behind it. But you frame the experience through the lens of a family dynamic, um, family structure that starts off traditionally, is broken down a bit, and then is regenerated, I guess. Tell me about, I guess, the thought process behind framing this through that lens, through the lens of family.
Yeah, it was because I was believing at that time, and I'm sure of it right now, that when you do your transition, your whole family has to do it with you in order to have a wonderful process, because it's so difficult, it's very tough. You have to pass so many surgeries, different kind of surgeries for the boys, for the breath, different surgeries for your vagina, and emotionally it takes a lot. So for me it was like the truth of this is that when you have the support of your family, everything seems very different. uh, it it has another color. It's if your family tell you tells you, yeah, tell you that you can conquer it, you do it because you have the support. And support is something very uh, fantastic. And at the beginning, Federico and Lizzie felt like lonely in the middle of that cold hospital. And after a lot of resistance, the little kid, Matthias, is the one that is, approaching his dad in a different way, like very understanding, and he's the one that says, "I love you, I miss you, I want you to be here, and I don't care, and you look more beautiful," and that's that's the truth. I mean, the little kids in a family, they are more open because of their generation. Maybe it is something that is there in this new generation, and so maybe there is a lot of hope for the future.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier in the conversation that the trans community in many Latin American countries are marginalized and excluded for very basic rights and mistreated. Um, we talked a little bit about how the trans community responded, but perhaps maybe how have how has the general public responded? The public that may still be whose thought processes may still be ingrained in very traditional mind frames. What has their feedback been like when watching the film?
They enter the the movie theater in thinking one thing, and when they went out, they think different, because the the movie has that power of the give the people the opportunity to change. Very nice. It was a very beautiful process, because I saw it through my eyes. I mean, people saying, okay, I understand the case, it wasn't that bad as thought it was. uh, and coming from a very Catholic country, it was a compliment, because, as I told you before, the country shows a clear polarization of the population. I mean, we're struggling right now, for example, with the coronavirus crisis, something that was very rare. The government decided to separate us, uh, uh, for gender. I mean, by gender, by days, by hours. It was very rare, something very rare. So the trans community felt they they weren't there, and it was true because it was the day of the guys and the day of the ladies.
Wow. So it was, again, maybe where do they exist? And there needs to be a place for
And
these
the
trans
police,
individual. Yeah, go ahead.
and it was worse because the police stopped them from going to the supermarket. Something very very simple, that hey, I'm going to the grocery and I want bananas and rice and bread. No, you have to come the day of guys because your ID says that you are a guy, but I'm a woman. No, but you have to come tomorrow, and they suffer a lot, and it makes me very sad. I mean, because we are experiencing that during right now during the COVID crisis.
Things are bad enough as it is, and then to have to suffer indignities like that, that's
Yeah,
another layer of pain that I think many of us can't even begin to comprehend or process. Which is, I think, why a film like yours is really important and indispensable for people to see, so they can get a sense of what the trans experience really is through the performance of a trans actress, which goes a long way to further representation on screen, which I think is, it should be a goal of everybody, really.
yeah, and especially the government, but we are
Of course.
far from that. So we need to make a lot of pressure in March and chat out uh, heavily in order to get rights for the LGBT people in Panama and in Central America and the rest of Latin America, because it's almost the same except from Brazil, Uruguay, Chile now, and Argentina. But the rest is almost the same. Mexico has equal marriage.
Well, there needs to be a lot of change that needs to happen, evidently, but your film is a beautiful representation of the trans experience. Arturo, thank you so much for being with us today. Do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share before we log off?
Oh, no, only to give you my um, thanks, because for us this is more than a movie. It's not just a movie. It's something that is happening to us in real life, and something that is not good at all. So that's what I want to say. I stand for change. I stand for the LGBT rights in all our countries. That's the reason why I want to thank you for including Everybody Changes, Todos Cambiamos in this year festival from San Diego Latino.
Well, thank you so much, Arturo, for joining us. I look forward to future projects. Do you have anything
Yeah,
coming out?
yes, yes. We're working on the pre-production of two movies. One of them is something that happened in Panama. It's the great scandal of the Panama Papers, but the inside version. I mean, Panama Papers, but the story from Panama to the rest of the planet.
Wow,
And,
fantastic.
and it's
And
going to be very fantastic because it has a lot of truth. I mean, the way it happened, and I'm seeing the story through the eyes of a mother, a professional, and wife, and that needs, I mean, to save her life. It's
wow.
very cool. It's going to be fantastic.
Well, when it's ready, please let us screen it if we can.
Sure,
When
sure.
it's ready.
Thank you. I will.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Arturo, once again. Everyone, we have many more days to go for the San Diego Latino Film Festival. We wrap on
Muchas
September
gracias.
27th.
Muy agradecidos. Unas
Thank you,
palabritas.
Arturo.
Se les quiere.
Gracias, Arturo, por tu presencia, por tu participación. Gracias por darnos la oportunidad de presentar Todos Cambiamos. Pienso que es una película que va a abrir muchas mentes, muchos corazones, y te lo agradezco del fondo de mi corazón. Gracias, Arturo.
Bueno, a ti, un millón. Cuídate.
Hasta luego.